everybody, it's Jen with Caketastic Cakes, and I'm going to show you how to make a Paw Patrol cake today. And Paw Patrol, if you aren't living under a rock, you know that still going strong. They still love their puppies. So in order to make a successful cake that looks really good, you don't need a lot of effort or a lot of skill. So I'm going to show you what I did here. I'm going to start by showing you how I made the badge that goes on top that just has the birthday child's age on it. I'm using my fondant paddle there in order to create the badge. I just, as you saw, swoop down on either side at the bottom to make a point, flatten off the top. I'm using a circle cutter to nip out each corner in order to make the corners of the badge. I realized it was a little crooked because, yeah, it's not perfect. And just trim off the top because it was a little bit tall. But there you go. There's your badge for your background. And I'm using gum paste for this in order to let it dry because I want it to stand up above the cake. You could use fondant if you want to lay it down on the cake, but otherwise I think you'd have to treat it with CMC powder or Tylose powder to make it stand if you want it to be a standing one. The blue part of the shield, as you see, I did the same thing. I just made the same cut as before, and I just trimmed off a little bit extra to make it so that you can see the gray on either side. I'm outlining, just putting indentations where the gray shield sat, and then I'm going a little bit further inside in order to make it fit, and voila. If you wanted to, it might, if you're not comfortable with this kind of idea, you could always just print it out on a piece of paper and then cut it and use it as a template. So you could do it that way too. I just have a star there, put in the center of the badge, because my child likes Chase. Chase is the pup for him. So that's why everything is kind of Chase themed here. And that's another thing too with Paw Patrol. That's an easy way to get around making it real complicated, is just focusing on one puppy. They all have a unique badge style. They all have, pictures of their faces that you can print templates out, which is what I'm going to do later also. And that will just make your life a little bit easier and still look really good. So now I'm using some black gum paste. I'm rolling it out really, really thin here, and cutting long skinny strips that I'm going to apply to the outside edges of the badge. I'm using a little bit of water along the edge to make it stick, and then I'm going to just edge it. Yeah, just carefully line it up, press it against the side, so now it's all outlined. I'm going to do both sides. As you can see, they're going to meet at the bottom. I'm just going to pinch it off, a little bit of extra water to make sure that it does stick at the bottom. And that's it. I've got a paper towel there that I will put it on to let it set and dry, but in the meantime I'm doing the same thing. Same thing with the blue part of the badge, and then I'm going to outline the star also, just to make it all look nice and neat and a little more, I don't know, cartoony, I guess. I kind of feel like I should have taken it a step further and maybe even outlined the number 4 that I'm putting on there. But, the first time you do anything, it doesn't come out the best. It's always the second time because you learn from the first. So there you go. Put that aside, let it dry. I let it sit for a good day. And there's my husband in the background there. Okay, now I have my cake. This was a 6-inch cake. I've got 3 layers. I cut each of the layers in half, iced in between. This is just American buttercream. I'm just putting on a layer of blue because, again, I'm focused on Chase. And that's kind of his color scheme, is the blue and yellow. So again, just clean up the sides as best I can. I'm going to clean up the top. I'm not as worried about the top. You're going to see why in a little bit. But that part doesn't matter so much. So once I have it nice and even, I'm going to clean up my cake plate, and then I'm going to put some yellow, I guess you could call them stars. I call them dollops sometimes. I'm going to make a ring around the top of the cake, and I'm going to do one around the bottom, but I'm going to do it later. That yellow dot on my cake plate there that you just saw was to mark the front of my cake, so I know which way I want my cake to face, because every cake has a side that just looks better. All right, my shield or my badge had a little time to set, and it's actually pretty firm. I let it sit overnight. So now I'm going to put a lollipop stick on the back of it. So I get a piece of gum paste, I wet it with a little water, press the lollipop stick into it. I'm kind of smushing it around a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit more water to it where the gum paste is sticking out around the edges. And then carefully press it onto the back of my badge. You've got to do it carefully because you have different levels on the front. And if you press too hard, you could crack something. And once again, put it aside. La-di-da. Okay. Now I've got Chase here. It was just a picture I found online and I printed out to a size that I thought would be good. Cutting him out, and he's going to be my template. So when I said this cake really doesn't have a lot of difficulty or a lot of skill that's required, pretty much if you can cut and trace, you can make this cake and it'll look very cute. I gotta say, I was very happy with it. This is, again, gum paste I'm using. You probably could use fondant here if you wanted to. I chose not to because I don't like how it looks. I work with my decorations pretty much only in gum paste. It's very rarely that I will use fondant because I find it to be soft and I feel like it's shiny. And if you have something that's real big or real heavy, sometimes it can kind of settle a little bit. I don't know. It's just my preference. All right, so I have my outline there. I went using my veining tool and made indentations where his ears are just to mark them off. I'm going over the indentations to make them deeper. And I'm going to take a ball tool. These are just regular flower designing tools. And I'm going to press down to make indentations in his ears. So this way, when I fill in with a little bit more of the color, of the light beige color, it's not going to puff up as much. It's going to be more recessed into his ears. If you do decide to do this, you don't have to do this, but if you decide to do it, it is going to change the shape of his ears a little bit. It is going to force them out, make them a little wider. Typically doesn't matter. If it does matter, you can always reshape it. You're going to see in a second here. When I carefully cut my ears, you can kind of see how the left ear and the right ear are sticking out past where it used to sit. You could always retrim it if it bothers you. It doesn't for me. Nobody's going to notice. This 4-year-old kid is not going to look at it and be like, what the heck is going on with Chase's ears? So I'm not worrying about it. I've got my light beige there, cut out the shape of the ear that I had just removed from the main template, and I'm going to put it inside the ear. It's not going to be a perfect fit because I did reshape stuff, so make sure you have a little bit of a thickness to it so that you can press it out to the sides and shape it yourself and try to make it nice and smooth. Now when I'm making cakes and I use templates like this, I typically do cut them all to pieces, but when you cut them out, cut them carefully so that you can retain part of the shape, the overall shape. Like right there you can see the hat and the ears in the back as I'm cutting out his face. I'm doing that so that when I stick that light beige piece on, I can use the original template, the hat and the ears, put it on the piece of dark brown I got there, and then I can properly space the light beige of his face. This way everything goes where it's supposed to go. I don't, accidentally make his eyes too high or too low. Everything is spaced properly. It's just something that I've learned over the years that I'm telling you to do because it'll save you some time and effort. It'll make your decorations look a little nicer. And again, if you follow the directions, if you can cut and paste, you can make it. So yeah, have it come out the best you can, right? Now, as you saw, I cut out his eyes and I made hollows inside the face, just like I did for the ears, so his eyes will sit recessed in and they won't be like telescopically coming out of his face at you. I put little balls of white inside that, if you look, the balls are kind of, well, they're not balls, they're circles, but they're thick. I left them thick because they are too small, and this way, as I spread them out, they're going to fill the entire circle and, again, be a little bit more recessed. A couple of circles of the same original brown for his eyes, for his irises. And just be careful here where you place them because you don't want him to look a little cross-eyed or googly-eyed or anything. And then the pupils. The pupils be careful of because they don't touch the bottom of his eyes. Like a lot of times you'll see the black and the brown touch the bottom of where the eye is sitting. His pupils sit center in the irises. So just be aware of that. A couple little highlights. And now I'm moving on to the hat. I cut the ears off the hat. Got some blue, some nice royal blue there. Cut it out. There you go. Template works every time. I made another cut of the same color, the same thickness for the brim of his hat, just so it's out a little bit further. Place it on with a little bit of water. Everything is attached with a little bit of water. Some people use like vodka or they will buy special glues or something. I find with gum paste you really don't need to. If you're comfortable, then by all means do it. This is just what I do and it works, so I share it. Okay, I made him a little smock, his little jacket that he got, or vest I guess it is, that he wears. And I didn't cover all the brown at the bottom because I'm leaving room for where his paws are going to be. And that's what I'm cutting out right now. I left those also a little thicker because I want the paws to be kind of coming forward more so than the face and everything else. I used the back of my knife to make a couple indentations for a little space between the toes to separate the toes. And I realized it was a little too long, so I just trimmed the bottom off at the bottom. Trim the bottom at the bottom. And then I was able to place the little paws on without any problem, just using a little bit of water like normal. Okay, continuing on, we're getting there with this guy. All right, now I've got some black gum paste. Once again, I rolled it between my fingers so that it was nice and thin, but it tapers on either end. And I'm going to outline the top of his eyes with it. I had put a little bit of water inside the eye socket area, and you can see it just kind of helps outline his eyes, finish his eyes. I don't know, he doesn't really quite have eyelashes, but kind of does. I use the black again. I use it for his nose. Gonna give him a couple little eyebrows there, make him look a little more friendly and expressive. And he's very cute. Like, this isn't hard. It is time consuming. I'm not going to lie about that because every little cut, every little piece you got to make and shape yourself. But it's not hard. And sometimes that's what's really important. All right, again, I'm using the mouth there. I have the line coming down from his nose. I use the template in order to measure out how long his smile should be and to follow the shape of his smile. This is also where you can kind of get off track easily. If you try to just wing the size and the shape of his mouth, it might not look quite right. He's got little tips at the end of his mouth that kind of tip down, and then he's got a little black line that goes across the top of his muzzle and under his eyes. Again, just, follow the shape of everything. A little bit of water to hold it all into place. And now I'm using a food coloring marker. This is all edible stuff in order to make his whisker spots on his muzzle. So there's 3 on each side. I'm just looking at the template just to know where they go. I didn't actually measure it out or anything. Okay, back to the blue again. Jumping all over this guy. I made another thin strip for the collar. I made a thin stripe of yellow to go across the top of his hat. Just trimming off the extra there. And these are pretty thin. I did roll this out pretty nice and thin. Got a little rectangle there that goes onto the top of his collar, like I guess the clasp that holds his tag in place. And I'm trimming out now the tag for his collar and the tag, or I guess the badge that goes on his hat. So it's just yellow. I'm using just the template, using a couple little circle cutters to nip out the corners, shape it as best you can. I got a little lazy and kind of went off script and just kind of winged it. But it came out fine. It was a little bit big, so you might have to trim it, but you can handle this stuff. As far as filling in the star part, I'm using a blue marker. Again, another edible food coloring marker. And I just colored in around where the star and around where the paw print go. Not the neatest or cleanest, but it works. So if I were to do it again, I probably would just put some blue gum paste and then a blue, star and everything on there. But for trying it for the first time, this worked. Okay, now sticking it on the cake. I put some water on the back of him all over the place. Stuck him on the cake oh so gently, and look at that perfect measurement right there. That's skill and not luck at all. That's just my mad skills coming out. So yes, he tucks right under those yellow stars, and I'm adding more to the bottom. When you do the bottom, start from each side of his paw and then meet in the back. Normally, when you're doing a ring, you start in the back and then you go all the way around and meet into the back again. But this time, since he interrupts it, start on either side of his paw and then go to the back and meet in the middle, in the back. The top, remember I said not to worry about. I felt like it needed more color, so I just have this bag of mixed different kind of yellow sprinkles that I'm dumping all over the top and just filling it in, which I thought kind of made it a little more fun, definitely more bright and colorful. Again, I felt like it needed something more, so I'm going to put some stars on it. I have some more yellow gum paste. I have my 3 different size stars from my star cutter set. Yeah, it has that little gesture I was doing right there. The metal star cutters typically always have like a little overlap where the 2 ends of the frame will meet, and it will cause a little dent in your stars. So when you take them apart, unless you have like some really good quality ones, in which case I'm jealous, when you take them apart and you take your stars out, you might have to just smooth that one edge of your star before you put it on. So I'm putting my different size stars hither and thither all over the cake. If you wanted, you could do paw prints or bones or something a little more generally Paw Patrol-y and not quite so specifically, Chase. But I liked it. My lollipop stick had set with the badge, so I'm pressing that down into the cake so it stands nice and at attention, and that's it. So you got a really cute, not hard Paw Patrol cake. That works. So yeah, I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it helps me out as well. We can help each other. I've got a ton of other videos out there as well as Paw Patrol, so take a look. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.